Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm checking out the Eachine E010S. This is the upgraded model that comes with a camera on the top. We also have an SP Racing F3 flight controller which is configurable. And then it comes with more powerful motors. You can see that they are red. These are the Racer Star 6mm motors, so it should have more punch than the original, which I do have here. Now this is actually the one that comes with the camera now as well, so they are giving you that. However, this one does not have a configurable flight control. It comes with a transmitter, which this one doesn't, of course, but you are stuck with the transmitter that this one comes with unless you've got a modified Devo 7E like I have. But you can't do acro and things like that with this one, whereas you can with this one. However, that's not too much of a problem because despite these motors having more power, I can't imagine that I'm going to be doing acro. When I'm flying these things indoors, I usually just have it in angle mode because I find that acro mode, it drifts too much and I end up crashing too much. I guess that's my skill level, but I do believe a lot of people flying these indoors are keeping it to angle mode. So it doesn't really matter that the other one isn't configurable, in my opinion. Speaking of the configurator, now we have a USB connector here on the back. However, mine came with Cleanflight installed and not Betaflight, which I thought was a bit of a shame because a lot of these BNFs now come with Betaflight, such as the Makerfire, which already came with it flashed. So if you want to mess around with that, you can, because we have the USB port on the back there, and I have also taken this foam off here, so the camera is just fitted here with this foam strip. If you remove that, there is a bootloader pad, not a button, it's a pad, so you'd have to solder it. So if you did brick it whilst trying to install Betaflight, then you can short that and rescue it. So the camera is a 25mm 40 channel. It's a tiny camera. These are getting so small now. And interestingly, this one has got a little 1.25 pitch micro JST connector which goes into it there rather than it being connected directly to the board, so you could reuse this if you wanted to. We have got a cloverleaf antenna on the top, and that is not going to stand very well in crashes in my opinion, but there you go. And then this one is the FreeSky version, but I believe you can also get it in FlySky, DSM2, DSM-X as well. And you can see that we have the antenna for that here coming out of the side. And then we also have got somewhere a bind button. Let me see if I can locate it. There it is, just on the corner there. So yeah, you need to go into D8 mode, and of course you are going to need a transmitter for this, and I'm going to be using the Tyrannus Plus. You can use the new Q7 transmitter as well, because that has D8 mode. And you can't fly it straight out of the box, and that is because the channel map was wrong in Cleanflight for a Tyrannus. So you'd think with FreeSky you'd be using a Tyrannus, so they'd have the channel map correct, but it was set up as AETR in Cleanflight, and of course you want TAER for the Tyrannus here. But before I talk about that, let's take a look at the battery. So you're only given one battery in this package, and it's a 150 milliamp, supposedly, 45C battery. This weighs 5 grams, this weighs 20 grams, so you're talking 25 grams for the whole lot. We do have some connectors underneath here, so if one of the motors goes, then you can easily replace the motors, but it's usually, for me, the board that goes rather than the motors these days. So we have this frame, and the frame seems a different material than the original E010. It's more of a Inductrix material. I mean, it looks exactly the same to me. It's very flexible, so maybe they've done that so that it doesn't snap and it sort of flexes more, but I will have to see if that affects how it flies. And then of course we have the tiny whoop style blades, and you are given a spare set of blades and just open this up here to show you the spares. So yeah, spare set of blades there. You're given a couple of rubber bands, and I'm not sure what the rubber bands are before, really, but maybe you could secure the camera in around here rather than using this sticky pad. A couple of rubber bands, prop remover, which is nice, and a charger using a micro Lozzy. So yeah, this one's using micro Lozzy on the battery, which is interesting, isn't it? I think a lot of people with tiny Whoop batteries already may have the 1.25 pitch JST connector, but you could easily swap that out if you wanted to. But I imagine that you get better current through a micro Lozzy for these more powerful motors. So yeah, prop remover, charger, and a couple of spare 3M sticky pads, and I guess that is to be replacing this thing here, because I've already ruined mine trying to find the boot loader pad. So yeah, it's good that you get that. It would have been nicer to have a spare battery, I think. So to bind it to your Tyrannus, whichever Tyrannus you have got, all I did here was, if I go to the menu and page over, just created a model, E010S, and down here we need to go into D8 mode and then press bind. This thing will start chirping away. You can plug the battery in whilst holding down that bind button, and then unplug the battery, exit out of here, reconnect, and it will be bound. Something that is interesting about this model is that it does send its telemetry to the transmitter, so it's RSSI, so it doesn't have an on-screen display. But if you go onto the telemetry page back on the main screen here, see it says no data at the moment, but it will tell you the RSSI value. I'm not really sure that that is needed, to be honest, for a tiny Whoop, because we're just flying it indoors, and I very rarely check that out anyway, and that does cause a problem because, of course, when the Tyrannus is close to the model, this is transmitting to it, this is transmitting back, and it often loses its bind because they're sort of interfering with each other when they're too close, so that is something that happens. Another thing that I thought was funny is the box that it came in. I thought, oh no, they've sent me the wrong one, QX100. They just sent it in this box for some reason instead. And you do get given this manual as well, which tells you all of the different frequencies, etc. It tells you all of the parts and whatnot. But what I have done is, on the Tyrannus, I haven't set up any switches or anything like that, so it's in angle mode out of the box, and then to arm you want your throttle at the bottom, and then press the rudder in like that, and then motor stop is turned on, so when it's on the motors won't be going, which is fine because I'm not going to be doing acro with it. You probably could do acro with this one with the power, and I will check out what the punch is like a bit later. But next, let's go into Cleanflight and just check out the settings there. So here we are in the Cleanflight configurator. You get this from the Chrome App Store. Of course, I've got the quadcopter plugged into the computer via a USB micro lead, and one thing that is good about the positioning of the USB port on the flight controller is that it's easily accessible, so we don't have to mess around whilst doing that. It is currently sitting flat. So you can see it says COM14 at the top there. I'm not going to install Betaflight this time because I feel like I've done it to death, and it's not really necessary because I'm just going to be keeping this one in angle mode while flying it around the house. But I will show you the things that you need to remember or save if you do want to flash it to Betaflight, and I would suggest that you check out my QX80 video because I show how to do all of the Betaflight flashing in that one. So let's go first of all into the ports, and you can see there that we don't have anything on the UARTs at all, the Serial RX. This is actually a PPM receiver, so despite it being FR Sky, it's not S-Bus, so you're going to have more latency than the S-Bus receivers, but honestly I can never tell, especially on a tiny Whooper aircraft. So you can see here that we have got quad X selected, no board alignment. We have got motor stop on, one shot 125 off, of course, because this is a brushed model, and disarm the motors. That doesn't really matter because we have got it arming on the rudder at this particular time. So you can see minimum throttle set quite low, which is fine because the motors aren't spinning anyway when I arm. Max throttle 2000, which is great. That's just come down here now, so everything else is off down here. That's fine. Let's go on to the fail-safe now. It was set to land out of the box. I have changed that to drop. Let's go into the PID tuning now. I'm not much of an expert when it comes to PID tuning in Cleanflight. I don't know if those are the defaults, but I'm leaving them as so. Go into the receiver tab. You can see there that it's TAER out of the box. It was AETR. So I have changed that. And you can see there that on the AUX 5, that is the RSSI value coming through as well. All this I have kept the same, and then down on the receiver you can see that it's set as ppm there as well. So if we go into the modes, only angle mode is selected, so if you want to open those up you need to set up a switch and then put horizon mode on there, and also if you want acro then make sure that none of the sliders are covering where your switch currently is, and then you'll go into acro mode and you can arm it on a switch as well. That's something I usually do, but I'm not going to for this particular time. So it's got LED strip enabled, I think, or maybe in Cleanflight actually it's always enabled, but there's no LEDs on this one. So let's go into this CLI and I'll just show you the version. So SP Racing F3. So if you do want to flash Betaflight, you'll need to choose that one, and I would also remember just the receiver configuration, which is ppm. And then you should be good to go because you don't need to remember any ports or anything like that. And of course as well you need to make sure that you need to change it to brushed when you switch over to Betaflight, because that option isn't in Cleanflight. I think it's a shame. It's a command that you have to put in, set motor PWM 32 million or whatever it is, and in Betaflight there's an option there to choose brushed, so you'll need to do that as well. Anyway, let's go and take it for a flight and see how it performs. So I just want to do a quick line of sight flight with this guy to show you the punch. So let's get it armed and let's try it out. It's a very stable machine. Okay, let's try the punch. It's not bad. I mean, it's not going to be the same as a 3S brushless model. But I think probably outdoors you could probably do some acro, but you'd need a pretty big space indoors to do some acro with it, I think, which is why I didn't go through all of the setup in Betaflight, because I just want to take this out of the box and fly it, and it flies very nice, I have to say. Quite fast as well, as you can see, very controllable, very smooth. I think it's going to fly it well. FPV, very stable. You can be really accurate with it. No drift whatsoever. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think comparing it to the standard Eachine and the standard Inductrix, I'd say it has more power. You have to make sure you don't get too close to yourself though, otherwise that telemetry could lose the bind. And the batteries ran out there. It wasn't a fully charged battery, but it does look like it's just going to fall out of the sky when the battery runs out. So let's get the battery fully charged and then let's go and do some FPV with it. So here is some DVR footage. I use the Fat Shark Dominator HD3, so I'll leave links in the description for all of my setup. Now, first of all, I want to say that this was so much fun. I have put my UAV graphics gates around the house and just look at this up the stairs. This is not something I would normally do because this is a newly decorated area. But this thing, you just point it where you want it to go and it just goes. You know, this space was so tight and I managed to get around it without hitting anything, and it was a lot of fun to fly it, I have to say. Really smooth and very stable. My only problem with it really is the flight time. Now, zipping through these gates here, the flight time was about 2 minutes 40, which isn't great. However, I did fly it around a lot slower, you know, not zipping through these gates as fast as I can, and it did get a 3-minute 30 flight time, which is more respectable. And also, I think the amount of power needed to get up these stairs definitely had an effect on that too. And I think what some people do is they cut 2 of the props off and you get a little bit more thrust. I didn't find the amount of thrust the problem, but of course when you have the 4 blades, that is going to draw more power basically, so you may get a longer flight time as well, cutting 2 of the blades off. But yeah, I give this one a thumbs up. I thought it was nice and stable. Of course, you know, it's fairly cheap, but then when you add the transmitter and the FPV gear, it's not so cheap, so I would say bear that in mind. And if you want a even cheaper setup, then I'm going to be checking out the E010 FPV version soon. That one does come with a controller, and of course, if you have a modified Devo 7E, then that is also a good option. Yeah, but just flying around the house here, this is the most difficult part, going up and down the stairs, and usually I crash 50% of the time with any other model trying to do this, and I didn't get close to crashing at all. The camera is a little bit offset, and that is because I removed it so that I could get to that boot pad to see if there was one there. But yeah, I have to say, I think this is a respectable model. I was having a ton of fun flying through these gates. It looks like the battery is about to sag now though, so I'll leave it there. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.